2011, in fact it's Easter time, and I just finished my book on Mick and Pat, which is a series of about 24 stories that were told. Some of them relate to what my grandfather told me when I was about 7 or 8 years of age in New Zealand, and I used to be absorbed by these little stories of the two Irishmen in the outback of Australia. They were Swagmen, and their colourful life and the happenings of these people and so forth. It was wonderful, and I'm trying to relate now to some of those stories. Most of it I've forgotten, but I'm trying to put together a series that are interesting and colourful, and I hope that somebody will enjoy them. Mick and Pat were two immigrants in the early days from Ireland. Their parents were potato farmers in southern Ireland, and in those days, in the very early period of the 18th century, there was a lot of problems in Ireland. There was time starvation with a blight at potatoes, and a lot of people were starving, and of course they got out of the country and they went to places like Canada and America and New Zealand and Australia and so on. Now, Mick and Pat were two young fellows that grew up in a large family. They didn't know each other, of course, in those days, but in that period of time, they went to school, but they were part of a large family. In fact, they found it very hard in those days to survive because of the starvation and so on. And therefore, it wasn't too long before both Mick and Pat decided to come out and live in Australia. And so it happened, and this is the story of these two people. Let me first of all tell you about Mick. Mick was a red-headed, fine-looking man. He had a long pointed nose, which he was very conscious of. He didn't particularly like his long nose. He had lovely hazel eyes, and he would be, in society, he would be a well-liked character because he had a good conversation, full of personality, and so forth. And when he came out to Australia in the Swagmen, it was his job to go around and do small jobs. It might be doing a bit of fencing, it might be mending a pot or two. Because in those days, in Depression days, there was very little going on in the way of work. And he might work all day and just get a few pence for it, or he might be remunerated by giving a meal or two, and so forth. But it wasn't long before he met up with another Irishman called Pat. Now, Pat's totally different. He was plump, he was short, he had receding hair, which he always wore a hat to hide this, but he was very conscious of it. But he was a bit of a rascal, actually. But the two characters are totally different to each other, as you'll find out later on. And they enjoyed life, they had a lot of fun, and I just hope some of these stories that I'm going to relate from now on are of interest and a bit of fun to you all.